Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is Donovan for episode 2 of CarCast. So today I'm switching it up a bit, and I'm actually going to be doing it driving to work. I know I mentioned before driving home from work. And also, I'm using my chest cam, so you'll get much more of a lower angle instead of my head cam. One of the funny things is, if you've ever used a GoPro or any action camera, they typically come with like this triple band headband that has like this like gluey substance on, and I always tighten it really hard to my head just so it doesn't move around. And I end up having almost like what looks like grill fried lines on my forehead. So that's why I originally wanted to start doing it on my way home from work, so I'm not walking into work and people are like, what's wrong with your forehead? And then I was thinking, I was like, maybe the chest mount would be a better idea for this podcast, just so you could see a little bit lower, just kind of get the interior of the car. But that's where we're at. So today's topic, I was thinking about it yesterday, kind of when I was talking about my interests and stuff. One of the things that I really like is true crime, horror content, that kind of stuff. So I figured I would kind of talk about my favorite like scary stories or favorite things on the internet or shows or movies that I've always watched. So I don't know what it is with the fascination with scary stuff, but ever since I was a kid, I wasn't obsessed with horror. I was one of those 4-year-olds who got subjected to one of the most scary movies of all time as a 4-year-old. I think it was like the original Stephen King's It I watched, and if you know that movie, that is not a movie a 4-year-old should be watching. Still have nightmares for the rest of their lives. I remember that, and then Dawn of the Dead specifically kind of creeping me out. But watched all the classics growing up, like Halloween, Scream, Chucky, all of those horror films. I feel like kind of now as an adult have a special place in my heart, but I was definitely one of the people who going to the bathroom at night or stuff like that would be like, oh, if there's a hallway light, let me turn it on. And then especially I'm not sure if it's Insidious I'm thinking of or some other movie, but one of those movies has actually the movie might be called Lights Out. It has a scene where the person is flicking the lights, and when it's dark you see like a creepy girl in the corner. When it's light she's gone, and then it does a jump scare where she just appears right in front of them. That kind of stuff messes me up because of course, like, you mentally think it's like, oh, well, I can't see in my basement at night, like, if the lights are off. There's definitely something just at the bottom of the stairs ready to come up and just murk me. But that was one of the things that also kind of irked me, just nighttime darkness. I think that's kind of ingrained into a lot of humans, though. There's something creepy about just looking at a forest or looking at a room and it's just pitch black. You can't tell if there's something in there. You can't tell if something's moving. And it just gives you this utter like feeling of dread that what if there's a person there looking at me and they can see me but I can't see them. Like, that mentality is always like awesome as a creative who makes it. Like, if you're able to make something that creeps people out that much, I guess you successfully did your job. But that kind of stuff always hit me like, oh, like, no, like, never get over it. Another movie that kind of messed me up for a while was, I forget what year it came out. It was called Mirrors, and basically the premise was if you looked at a mirror, like, it was a parallel universe where the mirror entity would basically cause harm to themselves and eliminate themselves, and it would happen in real life, almost kind of like voodoo doll type atmosphere. But it didn't matter if you like walked past, like if you looked in the mirror, you were basically like done. Like, you could walk out and be like, no, I don't want to see it. But by the time the mirror saw you, it was too late. It would imprint you and then do whatever it's going to do. that messed me up because a lot of, when I was younger, for example, this kind of ties together. A popular horror story was Bloody Mary, so I was always afraid, like, if I thought it 3 times, that she would pop out. If I shut the light off and my mind would be like, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, I'd be like, no, like, she's gonna come out. That stuff traumatized me because I was, like, kind of in my head, like, having the intrusive thoughts, like, just say it, like, and I was like, I don't want any part of that. But the mirrors is kind of like the opposite. It's like I felt as long as the lights were off in the bathroom or in my bedroom, if I was looking at the mirror, then that was like game over. So I always like made efforts to like crouch and walk in and like then turn the lights on so that the mirror couldn't see me. And then when the lights were on, I felt safe because it's one of those weird like kind of coincidences as a person where you feel like if you're in light, you're just safe. Like you feel like if you can be seen or stuff like that. Or even the kid version of that is, oh, there's like an intruder with a machete. He's gonna come in my bedroom and get me. But you throw the blanket over your head and all of a sudden you have like a building surrounding you and you think that nothing can get you. It's kind of that premise where like I guess it's just the safety of it. So I always find that interesting too, kind of the light and the dark themes. But so those were like kind of some of the movies that I could just generally recall off the top of my head right now about ones that kind of like messed me up a bit and scared me a lot. Another one before I switched to maybe more like creepypasta or stuff like that is The Grudge and The Ring Girl. Like that's just a common staple. I feel like if you weren't afraid of that at one point, then you aren't human. It's just like the stereotypical creepy white dress, black hair. You watch a tape, she comes in 7 days and gets you. Or The Grudge, just all the creepy sound effects, the cat boy, the gurgling she does. It's just all that stuff just like really sunk into my childhood and teenage years and was like, whew, this was not the best idea all the time, but made me who I am today. Ultimately, they're just movies, and hey, like those things are have to work out in a funny way too, because I know I have a video production background, and as scary as it was as a kid, like as an adult, I'm like, how did they get like the Ring Girl to climb out of the TV? And then you look up behind the scenes and it's like, oh, I could literally do this, like, and make a parody like Scary Movie or do whatever. It's just so much like changes as you grow older and realize like, oh, this is just like fake. I mean, it still has that creepiness to it, don't get me wrong, but it's not like, oh my gosh, like I'm gonna get kidnapped and beaten by the Ring Girl. So that is just a touch of some of the movies in my history that I've seen that have kind of like opened me up to horror and kind of really spooked me as a child growing up. And yeah, so covering kind of like maybe internet content or horror stories, a lot of the people that I digest recently are people who kind of break down content. So one of the people that I really like is Wendigoon. He basically makes long form videos about things like mysterious missing people, mysterious at-large murder cases. He even just does like goofy ones from time to time. I think he did one on like the banana factory. I forget the name of the company, but it was a huge banana exporter, and he kind of like goes through the whole history and outlines it. I think it's really juicy content to watch, but I mainly watch him for more of his like cryptid, urban legend, horror stuff, and he does a really good job just outlining everything, and I think that he's worth the watch. Another guy I really like is Mr. Ballin. He does a really good kind of narrative where he just explains the story does it in a very entertaining way, and also kind of like Wendigoon, he like lays out the facts, outlines the story, and they're all typically really crazy stories that you would expect not to be real, but they're just absolutely awesome. And I watch a lot of the, I can't think of all of their names. I know one of them I think is Nexpo. There's another one like I think Lazy Masquerade or Lasquerade. Sorry if I'm butchering that, but they basically almost do like Reddit stories, like true unsolved Reddit cases or true horror stories. And I just absolutely eat this up because it's always interesting hearing different stories. Like one of the ones that I heard not too long ago, maybe last month, I think was about a guy in Japan or China who ended up like doing work to get paid for, I think, like the Yakuza or something. And it was one of those situations where he was basically in dire straits. He didn't have much going on, but then like it's kind of like a Yakuza mentality where like once you're in, you're kind of stuck. And I think he was dropping off barrels at some warehouse. I think they may have been victims that the Yakuza took care of, so he kind of disposed of the evidence. And I think he was ultimately doing it to take care of his mom. But basically, long story short, after so long of doing this, he wanted a better life, trying to get out of it, and XYZ happens. I think that he's been out of touch with them. I don't think they've gotten in touch with him since, but basically I think he escaped. I can't remember exactly how, but just like crazy stories like that sound almost like a movie, but realistically that's actually somebody's life experience. I think that's one of the things that people don't realize is that these stories that are based off of Reddit or things, like not all of them are real, I know, like creepypastas aren't real. They're very entertaining and there's a lot of really good writers out there. But those kind of like perspective stories where people upload stuff like that are very just eye-catching to me, and I enjoy them because like I think that's one of the things as being humans that we really like get to indulge in. I know that in 2025 everybody basically just texts or FaceTimes. There's not as much, I guess, face-to-face interaction anymore like there used to be. Like if you think back in the 90s, 80s, people would be like, want to hang out? Let's go here, let's do this. There's still some of that, but I feel like a lot of the communication today is just like text to text. But back to the point, a lot of people, I think, don't get to tell their story to people. A lot of people have experiences that somebody might sit there and say, huh, like that is crazy. Like there's no way that, like, your life is a movie basically. You're telling me that you met this guy and he ended up being homeless and you gave him chicken wings and he was actually a CEO of a company. Like crazy stuff like that doesn't seem real, but happens day to day. And so many stories that people will never get to share. Like people might not ever post to Reddit. They just kind of keep them in their circle. But sorry for the yawn. It's still pretty early, so a little bit tired, but we'll make it through the day. But that, those are a couple channels I can think of off the top of my head that I really enjoy. Their kind of like narrative, like explanation horror style. And I think the benefit of channels like that is, I kind of touched on it in the first episode, so if you haven't seen that, go check that out too. That's just an introduction to the channel. But a lot of the kind of true story or like reading things where you read Reddit posts or comments, it's an audio kind of platform. So a lot of people who watch YouTube typically want to strive for like visual appealing things. So saying if I had 12 GoPros mounted in my car, and while I'm talking, it's like, oh, I'm going to snap to the A cam, that's my tire cam. I'm going to snap to my B cam, that's my back cam. Like, that's all fine and dandy, and it makes it a little bit more interesting than just looking at my steering wheel, my fancy Honda Civic. But it's like an audio platform, so you can basically watch it without watching it. If you're at work, and say if you like this kind of podcast, where I'm just talking about topics that interest me or things that you suggest, you don't have to watch any of it. You could just listen to it in your earphones or speakers, and I could even just like black out the video, and you're getting the same content. It's a little bit more appealing just to kind of see a visual, but it's really not necessary. It would be different if I had like a studio, and saying if I had like a guest, then I would obviously do like maybe a second camera where maybe it's facing the guest, and then they can say their piece with it. But ultimately, I feel like the horror platform is a very big community on YouTube, and I actually do have a horror channel in the works, and it's something I wanted to do for a long time. I uploaded a couple kind of top 5 scary stories on my Donovan Kilbert channel, so you can check those out if you're interested. But the video that I want to make, I really want to make it artistic, and I don't want to just have it be like an audio story. I want there to be creepy visuals. I want there to be some type of character that's like driving it, almost like that old show Tales from the Crypt. The Crypt Keeper was basically like the narrator, but it like cuts in between the show and the actual thing. So there's almost 2 ideas going on at the same time, where you're trying to tell a story, but you're also like, who is this guy? What's he do? What's his purpose here? Why is he telling these stories? I think it really just indulges the audience more. And I feel like that's ultimately what I want to do, is just to indulge my audiences into content that they would enjoy. So anyway, getting a bit off topic, talking about myself again. That like Reddit true crime stuff, or even the more simple stuff that's a little bit more lighthearted. Like another channel I listen to a lot regularly is r/. He is a guy who narrates a bunch of the r/ communities, like r/ choosing beggars. Excuse me. It's basically, he reads like the top posts about like Karens, about tech support, about am I the butthole, that kind of stuff. And it's very entertaining just, again, to hear people's stories about like instant karma. I mean, we all have that situation in our lives where we have that person who we wish would get a little bit of like maybe pushback or karma, and these posts are just like very gratifying to listen to, because it's like everybody's dream to be like, oh, well, I'm reading this story on r/instant karma, and it basically says this: I was driving down the highway one day, and then this truck literally merged into me and bumped me, and then I tried to catch up to him to get his license plate, and then lo and behold, he was looking at me, raising his fist, and he wasn't paying attention, and he ran into a state trooper. Like, that kind of stuff is just like, oh, like, if you were that person who got bumped into, you would be having a field day. You'd be like, yes, let's go. This guy hit this state trooper, he hit me, he was trying to run away, and now he's gonna face the consequences. That kind of stuff just like is always gonna be gold for anybody. So r/ is a good one, like I said. And then I guess it's hard to name specific channels, but there's a lot of channels like that use the AI voice, which, I mean, there's nothing wrong. I'm all for AI, but it kind of, again, touches on the video I made previous to this one. I feel like those channels, more or less, instead of the content per se, do it for like a cash farm channel, because I feel like those channels are extremely successful. I guarantee you, if I just made a narration horror channel and did it for a few months, I guarantee you I could get monetized so easily. And that's not me trying to be like I'm better than everybody, but any channel I see that does that, sure, they start off with a couple hundred views, but they always just break that one video that gets like 50,000, 60,000, 100,000. And I feel like they just keep doing that. And then they basically bank on that one video to make all their money and then be like, woohoo, YouTube profit. That's just not what I would want to do, because if I'm going to put my heart and soul into making content, I want to be able to sit there and say, hey, like, I uploaded this video, I spent time on it, I know it's going to do good. The next video I upload, I'm going to spend time on it. I'm going to want to know it does good. I don't want to sit there and say, okay, I got my one video on this channel that broke 100,000 views. Let's start another channel, get that monetized, just let that video ride and get all the money it's going to get, and I'll make a new channel. I just feel like that's counterproductive. It doesn't make sense to me, because if you're able to put content out that people are going to love and get views, I feel like it's going to be equivalent anyway. And plus, I think people don't realize as well, when you're bigger, a lot of things open up for you, such as what's the word? Sponsorships, I guess. It's not necessarily sponsorship, but I have some friends who have some good opportunities on different social media platforms, and they tell me about all the time, like, yeah, this company reached out. They said, hey, we'll like fly you out if you do content for us. Like, once you get to a certain point, doors will open. And funny saying I actually heard recently, actually from r/, I think it was a Choosing Beggar comment about a person on TikTok who had like 4.2 thousand followers or something. They were basically messaging a company they liked, saying, hey, send me your 3 most expensive bracelets and I'll do content for them. And the person said, we have a thing where if you get 12 people to buy through your code, we refund you the money. And then they flipped out. They were like, whatever, like, you just don't want to help a creator. And the guy narrating r/ said, you aren't an influencer if you have to beg. And that kind of hit me. I was like, that's an interesting point. Because if you become a good influencer, the companies that want you will reach out. You don't have to be like, I got 100,000 followers. What do I like? I don't know, Ray-Ban glasses. You don't have to message them and say, hey, Ray-Ban, can you send me like the most expensive glasses ever? Like, don't you have like Ray-Ban Meta 3s that are like $800? And oh, by the way, can I get my my prescription lenses in them and all that? If they really wanted you, they would reach out to you. It's not a thing where these companies are like, we absolutely need you, because there's a reason those companies are successful. People actually do buy that expensive thing you want. Like, you want that camera. Well, there are people out there who buy 3 of them. There are production companies who buy so many of them. There's people out there who just have it and are able to be like, you know what, I want to take up photography. They buy it. And then there's people like me or like the other person who will save, will find something we like, buy it, then we'll have to save again, buy it, XYZ. So my point with that is just, I don't know, I just had a brain dump, I lost it. But basically, yeah, so I found that to be interesting with the influencer side of things, and just that quote kind of spoke to me. But so we talked about that, and now another little genre I like to listen to from time to time. I don't really listen to it as much anymore because, again, they're all fictional, but I guess it's kind of like the gateway content for people is creepypasta. So there's tons and tons and tons of stories online, on forums, on websites, and it's basically people who kind of like author these fictional stories that are very creepy, but they're also like really good. So they tell them from the perspective of somebody almost like talking about a true story, but they just narrate it in a way where, like, obviously, it's fictional. If a giant alien squid pops out of a box and eats people, I don't know. But the way they tell it's very convincing. One of the most popular ones, which I'm sure if you've ever watched anything horror, you've probably seen, the Russian sleep experiment. That one is told in such a way where you could probably make it into a short film / movie. It is a very good idea. Basically, if you don't know, the premise is that in, like, I believe World War II, they did like a test on Russian soldiers or like prisoners of war or something, where they tried to keep them awake as long as possible with this certain gas that they kept pumping in. Long story short, they went crazy. They were like scarring themselves, doing crazy things. They shut off the gas. They were like demanding that the gas be put back on. Then everything breaks loose. They attack all the scientists, and what do you know? You probably shouldn't keep people up for 8 weeks straight. It's a very classic horror story, but like I said, there are tons of them. There's like Jeff the Killer. There's The Expressionless, which that one messed me up for a while because that one is told really well as if it is a true story, and they often have images that look real attached to them, so it kind of tricks your brain into like, this was a real woman, like this is scary. And just wrapping this up in one big bow tie, I really enjoy the horror / cryptid, urban legend, true crime, all that stuff. And if you haven't seen any of that content, I'd really highly suggest that you do. It's very entertaining. You won't be sorry that you watched it. And it's just one of those rabbit holes, too, on YouTube that you can literally dive down for weeks and still not even be a quarter of the way down. There's so much content, so much good stuff. So check that out. But anyway, guys, I am coming up on my place of work. I really do appreciate you guys watching episode 2. If you like this content, be sure to comment, like, subscribe. Make sure to leave comments and suggestions down below how I can make this better for you guys. And also just topics that you want to hear me talk about. If I don't know anything about it, I'll do a bit of research. But I want to really engage with the community, like I said. So feel free to reach out, message me, comment, whatever. But thank you for watching. Hope I have a good day today, and I hope you guys have the best day today. Take care, be safe, and I'll see you in the next one.